Alright, so I'm back in Demon Souls. A lot of Demon Souls hype, so I thought I'd throw myself at a boss again. Maybe I'll do some exploration this time. Today, I want to talk about the iPhone 12 mini. It's here, and it's been a lot of fun to use today. I've had it for most of the day, and I had a little bit of a hiccup getting my stuff onto it. I think there was something wrong with because for some reason it came with iOS 14.1, which came out a couple weeks ago, and iOS 14.2 on the iPhone that I was currently using was not playing nice with it in terms of like wanting to restore over. So I had some issues restoring over my stuff, so I ended up starting over. But I think it's nice to have a fresh installation of iOS, just to make sure everything's working in tip-top shape. So I've been using it for basically the entire day, and it's been a lot of fun. I think that there's something really fun about just getting a new like product. It's been a while since I've gotten something so clean. Sometimes I get like hand-me-down or like recycled stuff, like old monitors or whatever. And it can be nice to like make old things new, but it's nice to just have new things. And I felt that when I bought the iPhone 11 back in February, and I feel that now with the iPhone 12 mini. But there's something more magical about the 12 mini because there's a lot in it that I haven't experienced in a phone in a long time. For starters, the size. It's so compact. Like it's smaller. Like I knew conceptually how small it was going to be, but it's perfect. I don't have to think about weight or like grip. I just kind of hold the phone, and it's kind of elegant and beautiful, and it's very Apple-esque. Um, the phone itself, people hate on the blue that comes on the 12 and 12 mini, and I love it. I prefer it to the 12 or the blue that's on the 12 Pro. I think it's a great color, and honestly, I just look at it and I'm just stunned. Like it's so much nicer looking than any other phone I've had because I got the color selection spot on. Um, I'm back to using Face ID. I was using a 6S Plus for a while, so I kind of gotten used to Touch ID again, and I remember why I preferred Face ID, and that's because when it works, like when I'm out and about using my phone, unobstructed by a mask, and I just want to do stuff, I kind of just use the phone. And if it needs to authenticate anything, it just goes because my face is right there. I'm looking at the phone, so it doesn't need to ask me to do anything. Touch ID was always like a stop and go process. Like Touch ID always, you know, made you take a second, hold your finger on the button, and then you can do whatever you're doing. Face ID, I think Face ID takes just as long to validate, but because there's no like physical movement to initiate Face ID, it feels more seamless. So I usually I'm usually less frustrated with authentication stuff when I'm using Face ID. So it's been really nice to be back on that again. It's been really nice to have the flat screen. So the phones, the iPhone 12 lineup is all like flat edges now, just like in the iPhone 5, iPhone 4S kind of design. And I had sort of heard about the screens being flat now. But what's really nice about that is because the screens are flat, there's two things that are nice about the screens being flat. One is that screen protectors go on like a dream on older iPhones, and on generally any smartphone that has curved or chamfered edges on the sides of the screen. If you don't line up a screen protector perfectly, what'll end up happening is sometimes the edges of the screen protector will start to kind of lift up, and you'll see some of like the adhesive. And you can't really stick it back down because it doesn't have a flat enough surface to adhere to. But because the screen is flat, if you put a screen protector on, so long as you have it aligned correctly, over because most screen protectors have like the Face ID cutout, so long as you're aligned correctly to avoid the Face ID, it just goes on and it's stuck perfectly on. And that's nice because I feel like I'm gonna have a lot less frustration with screen protectors. Um, and just in general, because the screen is so flat, the second point is the edges, like the bezels, are so much thinner. And with a case on, and with the screen protector, it's there's no like transition from case to phone screen. Like I usually will kind of, if I'm gonna swipe side to side, I'll have my finger on the edge of the phone and then swipe into it. And on the 11, there was this like really deep divot between like the sharp edge of the case and then where the phone began and then where the screen protector starts, and that divot was all around the phone, but that's not there on the 12 mini because it's so perfectly aligned. The camera bump is smaller because the phone is smaller, so the camera bump doesn't feel as pronounced. Like usually out my index finger will kind of like idly go back there, and like I'll just kind of feel around the edges of the lenses because it's it's like a little fidget, and that's just like more comfortable. I don't know, it's like a weird quirk, but something I noticed in my personal use. Coming from a 6S Plus running in with an A9 processor, the A14 is snappy. It's if I had stayed on the 11, I might not have noticed as big a difference in the general system performance. But coming from the A9, man, I forgot how smooth iOS is on newer stuff. And memory management, I had heard about the memory management on the iPhone 12 lineup, but it's spectacular so far. Like, and if I have anything open in the background, it just stays open. So long as I don't have too many things open. And that's just really nice, knowing I can open an app and leave to go do something and not drop out of what I was doing. And which is a problem on the 6S Plus because it has less memory and it has worse memory management. So, I feel like I'm sort of overstating some of the things that are nicer about moving to a newer iPhone because I stopped using a newer iPhone to use an old iPhone before I got the brand new iPhone. But I don't know. I still think it's worth writing home about. And the biggest thing that I would have noticed regardless was the OLED display. Now that was a big seller for me on the lower end models because I was assuming that even if there was going to be a mini, I wasn't keeping up with leaks very well. My assumption was that even if there was going to be a mini, it would have an LCD, and so it wouldn't be worth it because the iPhone 11 has an LCD, and it's fine. But the problem with an LCD on an ultra-wide display when ultra-wide content isn't standard is that you get black bars on the side of the content of the video or whatever, and those black bars are lit up because it's an LCD. So you just have like these like gray dim strips of the screen that are kind of annoying, and because the 12 mini is an OLED, it's pitch black. Those parts of the screen are off, so it's not even there. And just in general, because I use my phone in dark mode, everything's been way more contrasty in dark mode because so much more of the screen is just turned off, and it's just really nice. And that's again, that's something that if I owned like an iPhone 10 or a 10s, that I would have already noticed, but because I didn't, it's I don't know, it's just kind of nice. It's also really sharp. It's the highest resolution display in the 12 lineup. So it's like it's a little bit higher than 1080p ultra wide, but it's in the 5.4 inch size, so I think it's like 480 pixels per inch or something like that. It's super dense, and everything is just really crispy on it. Even on their smaller screen, text is really, really just sharp. In general, like usage is just I don't know. Everything just feels like it works. Like I was seeing a lot of reviewers kind of rag on the iPhones this year for not having high refresh rate displays, and I understand that. And I was kind of hoping for high refresh rate this year as well, but I understand that it's like why Apple didn't do it for battery purposes and stuff like that, and I think it's okay for my personal use. 120 hertz is nice, but it's not a necessity. because yes, it makes general like browsing and stuff smoother, but it's not. It doesn't enhance the experience aside from like oh, this looks nice, you know. And even in most games, for example, don't support 120 hertz. Like really, the only thing I could think of that supported 120 hertz was like I think Fortnite had a 120 hertz mode. I might even be wrong about that. Um, Aside from that, Asphalt 9 has 120 hertz mode. That's about it. So I wouldn't even be playing any games that had 120 hertz. I think PUBG maybe PUBG Mobile might have 120 hertz support, but regardless, I'm not a big mobile gamer. So 120 hertz for me, while it would have been something nice to have, was not a necessity ever, and I don't feel like I'm really missing anything because of how many other improvements I have coming from just a plain 60 hertz LCD. The 60 hertz OLED. That's sharper. I will take that any day over a 120 hertz LCD. Um, uh, in general, battery life, I haven't had a chance to stress battery life super well yet because for most of the day, a lot of my apps weren't set up, like my email and all that kind of stuff that my phone would be pinging for. So I haven't tested battery life super well. I also haven't used it for like a full day from the morning to until I go to bed. But I've heard that battery life is decent if like when I see people on YouTube look at the battery life on the new lineup, they talk about battery life in the context of them on 5G networks and using the phone pretty aggressively, like just like actively using it for the sake of stress testing it. But I don't use my phone that aggressively. I use it in dark mode, which helps the battery on an OLED. And I don't have 5G. Our cellular plan doesn't include 5G, and I may even if we did get 5G coverage, even if it was in the area, I'm not sure if it is. I turned it off on purpose because I don't need fast cellular personally, and even if I was getting 5G, I wouldn't want the battery hit. So I turned off LTE, and I expect my battery to at least be as good as it was on the 6S Plus. The 6S Plus, I was actually getting really bad battery on iOS 14.1 because 14.1 was pretty heavy on batteries, but as soon as I updated to 14.2, it smoothed out. So I'm hoping it's at least as good as that, and it probably will be. I'd be surprised if on just LTE it was just bad. Like no way. I ran an iPhone 7 for a long time with a smaller battery and a less efficient processor and an LCD screen. Like I'm pretty sure I can make it through the day. And it's not the biggest battery in the world, but I'm a pretty light user. I like to have like the latest and greatest, but at the end of the day, I don't push my stuff that hard, especially on the smartphone side. On PCs, I have my moments. Trying to run Metro at ultra settings is a pretty heavy load, or Half-Life Alyx. But in general, on PC, I keep it chill with like Dark Souls and stuff. So I like to think of myself as like a potential power user. I know all of the things that I could do to push the hardware, but I just kind of don't because it's not, I'm not doing Geekbench runs on my phone every couple of minutes, But no, it's just generally been fun to use. Going back to a smaller phone and a smaller phone that's like easy to grip, that doesn't have the curved sides. Like it's felt really. It's just fun. I like changing up what I carry around with me, even if it's not permanent. That's why I switched to the 6S Plus for the 2 weeks that I did, because it was fun to have just like a phablet in my pocket, and it felt kind of cool, like just no case. Like because I usually like to keep a case on my stuff to just prolong its lifespan, and especially on the 12 mini, it's I bet a lot of money for it, and even though the front display with the ceramic shield is really durable, I've seen a drop test where the pixels on the screen got marked, like were damaged, even though the glass itself was still in good shape, and the back glass is still regular glass. It doesn't have the ceramic shield, so the back glass just straight up shatters. So on the 12 mini, so I like to keep it protected. But when I was running the 6S Plus, it's an older phone. It had a screen protector on it, but it's made of aluminum, and I'm not super concerned with how beaten up it gets. So I ran it just without a case, and that was fun. And even though I knew I wasn't going to carry around a 6S Plus forever, it was just nice to change up what's in my pocket. And that's kind of what this feels like. I'm hoping that longer term, I find something a little bit more like I feel like there's some niche that I'm missing. Like there's something that I wanted from my phone before that I can have now with the Mini that I'm like forgetting about. Like the cameras, no, I already had good cameras on the 11. The display, like I've already sort of, I've already had my moment with the display. But I feel like there's something I'm forgetting about, and I think what that might be is MagSafe. I've been thinking about it, and for a while on the 11, or while I had the 11, I was thinking about wireless charging in general, and just getting wireless chargers because I've never had one. And I think it's kind of interesting. But MagSafe specifically on the 12 is interesting to consider because it's a little bit, it's a step beyond just regular wireless charging. It's a little bit faster, and it's magnetic, so it aligns properly, and it's got the Apple sauce, and I feel like that might be what I'm looking for, is that like magnetic click. But it is a $30 cable or $20 cable, so I'm not immediately gonna jump on it when I have 3, 4, 5 other lightning cables just sitting around that work perfectly fine. And I'm not too concerned with like fast charging or anything. I'm just curious about MagSafe in general, and I think in a couple of months or a couple of weeks, when I bite the bullet on a MagSafe cable and a USB-C wall brick, I think I might get that sensation of what I'm kind of missing with this with this new phone. But yeah, I'm thinking about things that I can do with it that are interesting beyond just talking about it. I'm not, again, not huge into mobile gaming, so I'm not sure how interesting just playing a game on it would be. I'm not a huge camera buff, so I'm not super concerned with the camera performance, although I have heard a lot of good things about HDR. That might be another thing I'm forgetting about in terms of the display, is that the cameras now record HDR in Dolby Vision, but the displays also now display Dolby Vision. They're all rated for Dolby Vision and HDR10 and all that. So I might go out and find some HDR content and compare it to the same the same footage in SDR, and maybe that's also what I'm thinking about when it comes to something I'm missing on, because HDR is a pretty big thing as soon as it picks up steam. But where I mostly consume my content, which is YouTube and just general like social media, HDR is obviously not accessible, and it's not a thing. So I might have to kind of go out of my way to find some HDR footage, maybe purchase a movie or two that are HDR. I know stuff like How to Train Your Dragon 3 and all that are HDR. So I might just have to bite the bullet on a couple movies. But yeah, just kind of preliminary thoughts on the 12 mini. Very exciting. It is a bit. It was a pretty hefty, price to pay for maybe an idea that was a little bit overambitious. But I think where I'd normally feel buyer's remorse, like how I felt with the 11, I feel excitement with the 12 mini. There's something really nice about having a phone this small, and it feels unique. There aren't really any Android phones that are this small, that have tooling for the chassis that's this small, that manufacturers don't source screens that are this compact. Like this feels special, and I know that it's kind of it's kind of dumb to idolize Apple products, because Apple does a lot of things wrong. But I bought this device under the sort of idea that I don't have to be critical all the time about everything, because if I'm critical about everything, I don't let myself enjoy new products. And so I can criticize Apple all I want, but at the end of the day, I'm still an Apple enthusiast, and I like to say Apple fanboy to kind of joke about it, but I'm really critical of Apple, and I because I see the potential in in their products, and I think they're really well built, and there's a reason so many people use them. There's a reason that a use case exists for Apple products. Um, I think the things they do wrong should be highlighted and criticized, but when they do things right, I think it should be celebrated as well. And I think the 12 mini is something they did right, something specifically new and refreshing that they did right. Um, and I'm the repair person in me is sort of just hoping that nothing goes wrong, that it's just sort of in good condition for the whole time that I use it, that it never has those issues with the cameras, and I never have to replace a screen or anything. And that's why I tossed a case and a screen protector on it the moment I pulled it out of the box. But in general, I just want to let myself enjoy this, even if maybe Apple doesn't deserve it, because there's a lot of exciting things coming from Apple, and I still like the hardware, and I can't be critical repairman myself. Like I personally can't be that person all of the time, because it's tiring, and it makes all these new products and stuff seem boring, or like they don't have any merit or place. And sometimes I just kind of want to have fun. So yeah, there's my whole spiel on the new iPhone. Thanks for listening. If you did listen this long, I won't bore you with another boss attempt. Next time I play this game on a recording, I will do my best to either get some healing items, or I'll just start a new character and play a more interesting part of the game, because this has been a bit repetitive for me, and I assume for you as well. But anyway, thank you very much for listening. See you later.